Hello, Dr. Poe. This is my weekly vlog number one. Um, During the past few days, I made a lot of connections, which I'm really glad, so I can do this vlog. Okay, I guess the first thing to talk about is our paper. I'm so glad that we had these systematic breakdowns in the papers because in the end, we were able to finish the paper while other people are stressing out about not even being able to start the paper, which I'm really glad about. And this connects me to all my other classes. I find that systematically breaking down the papers, and I guess overall, like, having multiple drafts to work on is a good idea. I even asked one of the professors, like, what to do to get a good grade, and a lot of them said that I should give my paper early to the professors so that they can check the drafts so that I can work on it again for a better result. And I guess I need to implement that in my life. So during the past few days, of course, I did a lot of papers, and I kept remembering the systematic breakdowns. Of course, I wasn't really that successful with it, but I'm still glad that I, was able to finish the paper in time. The next thing would be skill clusters that we learned. I find it really interesting, the skill clusters, because the intended jobs obviously have different skills that is needed for the job to, like, continue for the person. I don't know if that made sense. For example, if you're trying to be a teacher, you need to be responsible, you have to be able to take care of multiple things at the same time, as well as preparing a class and be very diligent and efficient and everything, because you're basically being responsible for the knowledge and education for these kids. And that's obviously, like, a really big thing, because these people are going to grow up and be out there in the world, and of course will make a difference in the world at some point. So you're holding a really big job, but of course in those jobs some people would not or wouldn't like some of the skills or some of the points that they need to have or have to do. For example, if a person doesn't like taking care of things all at the same time, then they're obviously going to, like, stress out about it. But that's, like, the point of the job, so that you can learn about it in a sense. So I find it really interesting, and I felt like it's the same thing with being a student, even though it's not really a job, because I've never actually had a job. I've only done voluntary works and being a student. Yeah, so in my voluntary jobs, for example, I helped with daycares for like fourth and fifth graders or something, and a lot of the time a lot of kids wouldn't really approach me because I'm a new face, and I guess they're just so used to the teacher helping them out, that as a voluntary student teacher, I wasn't able to approach the kids. But when time went by, I was able to, like, plus with the teacher's help, of course, the teacher kept telling, like, the kids to, like, ask me about some stuff, because the teacher's really busy, which is true, and they were able to open up to me and ask me questions. But it was also hard because as a 12th grader back then, I learned even though I remember learning some, I guess, math equations, for example, differently because the teachers want us to like learn it systematically, like this is why this thing happens, or like the sum of this is because of that, or when you're finding the x and stuff like that. And when you're growing up, all of this gradually becomes harder and complicated, and your brain also develops to understand these concepts in a more complicated way. So when I was helping out these kids, I guess at some point some of the equations I was doing it the way I would usually do it and not be able to, and the kids won't be able to understand it. And so I thought that was a big thing because yeah. So in the past few days, the skill clusters made me realize that as a student, I may not feel very comfortable or very happy being covered in deadlines, but it's a thing I need to learn because in the world, obviously, the deadlines are there with a purpose, and I need to develop these skills for the future. And I thought that was cool. And another thing I thought was about the presentations, mostly about the tone. And I realized that on Saturday I had to meet up with my professor and go to the Civil Rights Museum, and then later on to a play called Boy, which was a really good play actually. And even though it's not related to presentation, I'm still presenting myself as a person before all these people and my professor for my human development class. And of course, the tone, it really matters. I can't just go on and on being really informal with my professor, but then again, I have to be not too formal or else I won't be able to, I guess, hold a conversation. I've learned this, like, I guess when I came to America, because in my culture, I have to be really respectful and talk whenever they only ask me to talk or anything like that. And so having an informal conversation with my teacher was not really a thing back then, even though a lot of people encouraged us students to go on and talk with the professors so that they would know us better, to, write really good papers about us. And here, again, because tone really matters, I had to, as everyone else stated, like, to break the ice. And of course, at that point, I literally thought that I thought it was better to break the ice by saying whatever that's coming into my mind, like sharing what I'm thinking of, and not really like keep it to myself the whole time like I used to when I was back in my home country. And so I thought it was cool to be able to talk to my professor equally as human beings, as individuals, and it helped both of us to understand who we really are and how we really feel about certain things. So it was really helpful. Another thing, it's not really related to all the things we learned this past week, but it's related to just the overall vocation thing. I remember going to the Civil Rights Museum on last Saturday, yesterday, and there were a lot of sayings of like religion and church, and how the black people, they usually went to church because it was a social gathering, so they would go there to mostly like communicate and form this community, to feel connected to the people who are feeling the same way.